So I'm a girl who likes to spend money, especially other people's money. So when I first started teaching and I found out that I would have this magical allotment of cash to purchase anything I wanted for my art room from this giant sized catalog, I was so excited. They referred to it as a budget, but I don't really like that word because it kind of makes me think of like penny pinching and saving money, and y'all, that's just not my thing. But I was thrilled to get this catalog, and as I started going through it, I got less and less excited and more overwhelmed. I mean, let's face it, art supply catalogs are about this thick. They have a multitude of things, and then when you find the one thing you need, for example, paintbrushes, then there's a huge variety of paintbrushes to choose from. Do I want pointy ones? Do I want flat ones? Do I want bristle? Do I want sable? I don't know. And then don't get me started on paper. I remember when I first started teaching and I was given that catalog and I'm looking at the paper thinking, why do they weigh different pounds? I don't even know what that means. I'll just go with the cheap one. Big mistake. So I've learned a little bit over the millions of years that I've been teaching, and I thought I'd walk you through some must-have things that you just got to have in your elementary art room to put in your supply order. So let's go shopping, y'all. So first things first is paper. You need to have paper, and you need to have lots of it. And unfortunately, when I did this order of paper, I ordered 60-pound paper. I mentioned the pound and the weight of the paper. 60-pound is actually a little bit too light. It's good for drawing. It's not great for other things. And I usually like to order 80-pound paper. I made a mistake in ordering, and I usually order it by reams and in the size of 12 by 18. I usually get about 3 to 4 reams for the 400 students that I teach. So that usually lasts me well over a year. I hate to run out of things like paper, and I order this size because I can always cut it smaller. The reason I say get the heavier weight is because then you don't have drawing paper and painting paper, but you have one paper that can handle everything. When it comes to construction paper, and my stash is getting a little thin since I'm at the end of the year, the only construction paper I say to buy, and my buddy Laura Lohman of Painted Paper will back me up on this, is Tru Ray. It doesn't fade. It is a nice quality of paper. It doesn't feel like it's going to fall apart like some others do. So those are your must-haves for paper. So this is my pencil drawer, which is about as tidy as it's ever going to look. The thing with pencils is you don't really need to order just general drawing pencils. These guys, all you got to do is send out an email to your fellow teachers. They probably have tons and tons of broken pencils, shorter pencils. Hey man, it's a pencil. It works just the same. That way you can save a little bit on your budget. Or as you can see, wait until it's a little bit after school has started and you can get them dirt cheap. As far as pencil sharpeners go, I've tried them all, and these little handheld ones, the plastic ones, not my jam. The best ones to get are metal ones, but even better still is to invest in a good X-Acto pencil sharpener. Those are my favorite. Erasers, they don't last long on pencils. So the best erasers that I like to use, and so do the kids, are kneaded erasers. However, these guys tend to disappear because they're like a little bit of clay to play with. So another great eraser to get are the white erasers. I prefer them over pink ones. The pink ones tend to smear when you're trying to erase. The white ones work great. So crayons and markers tend to fall into that same category as pencils. All you need to do is send out an email at the end of the year asking for those things. My friend David did that recently, and he got a ton of supplies. So markers and crayons, that's not something I typically order. We just don't use them a lot. And plus, you can get them for free from buddies in your building. If you're going to order markers, I like to order Crayola. I've tried Mr. Sketch. I've tried other brands, and I always go back to Crayola for markers. Same with crayons, but I actually haven't placed a crayon order in ever. I think the only crayons I've ever ordered are construction paper crayons. Let me show you those. So construction paper crayons are pretty awesome. We don't use them tons, but they actually do some pretty cool things when you try them out on clay projects and use that method where you dip you color the clay projects with construction paper crayons, and then you dip them in watery black tempera paint. So we don't use these too often. I'm just not a fan of a waxy crayon. I'm more of an oil pastel girl. But getting a big box like this is definitely something you'd want to have on your supply order list. Oh, colored pencils. Not my favorite thing on the planet. I have exactly 3,000 color pencils. The kids use them every now and then, but we all kind of feel the same. You're constantly having to get up and sharpen them. And then the kids do that wonderful thing where they sharpen both ends. Gotta love that. Not really. So one solution is to order something called art sticks. These guys are not cheap. They're by Prisma, so that means they're going to be good. But they have a little bit richer of a consistency than a color pencil, but they feel the same. They're hard. They're not like an oil pastel. And these work great. They're a great substitute for color pencils. So oil pastels, I love them so, and so do the kids. I recently decided to switch from those smaller oil pastels to these bigger Crayola ones so they would last a little bit longer, and I liked them. I thought the colors were nice and rich. Another set of oil pastels that I really like, also made by Crayola, are these Portfolio. These are cool because they're water soluble. So the kids color a little bit and then you take a paintbrush and some water and you get some really beautiful effects. They're very creamy when you use them. So we only use these when we're going to be using them with water. They're expensive, but I felt like it was a good investment. We've had these for a couple of years in my room. I always order extra black and white oil pastels because that seems to be what we go through the quickest. As you can see, these were brand new not too long ago, and now we're down to nubs. Another oil pastel brand that I like are these by Gallery, and I like them because they come in these fluorescent colors. And Gallery also makes some metallic oil pastels that are really fun too. Y'all know there's no such thing as too many Sharpies, right? So this is actually just a small portion of my Sharpie collection. I like to get the black Sharpies, obviously, and I like to get them these bigger ones, and then the fine point ones are great too for detailed drawing. And having colorful Sharpies on hand is always great for tracing over drawings or just for coloring and drawing in general. So last year I switched from a different paint brand to Sax Versatemp, and I really like it. I think it's a great paint. I like the primary colors, the black and the white. I don't love the magenta and I don't love the turquoise, so I'm on the hunt for better versions of those. They're great, it's just that they're not as good as I want them to be. The colors don't really seem to pop as much as I want them to. My friend Laura of Painted Paper, she swears by Blick acrylic paint, so I might have to give some of that a shot. I played around with it a little bit, and the colors are very opaque, which I love. Oi, watercolors. I have a love-hate. I love having the kids use them. I hate the changing out of the refills. And I also struggled for a long time finding watercolor paints that were actually good. Crayola's mixing colors are the best as far as I'm concerned, but you got to get the mixing colors. Although my buddy Jennifer swears by liquid watercolor. So I invested in some of that at the end of the year. We played around with it for a couple of projects, and I have to say she might have converted me because I really loved how bright and brilliant the colors were and how much easier it was for the kids to just paint the watercolor on as opposed to dipping it into the tiny little pans and doing it that way. So when I first came to the school, the previous art teacher did not have paint. She had all of those containers of powder paint. I've now been at this school for almost 15-ish years, so we're talking that's some vintage instant powder tempera paint there. I'd love any suggestions on what to do with it because it just sits here and collects dust. But that's not why we're in this cabinet. I wanted to share with you my tempera cakes. So I use tempera cakes mostly with kindergarten at the beginning of the year. I just find that it's instant gratification because the colors are more opaque and it's a little easier for them to understand the, getting your paintbrush wet, getting some paint, and then cleaning your brush better with this kind of paint than it is with the liquid temperas and acrylics. And I usually get these biggie cakes, and you can see right down there, I often get the refills of colors too. If you have a little wiggle room in your budget, I invested in these Pelikan paints, and the kids used them recently to paint some clay projects. And it comes with 24 different colors. I liked them a lot. I thought the colors were great. There was a great variety. It was almost like a not so sticky temper cake. They went on very much like a gouache did. And I have a feeling that we'll be able to use these for several years once I clean the tray a little bit. As far as chalk goes, I feel like the only brand of chalk that anybody should be using is a brand called Koss. Now all my chalk is right now mixed up because we were doing a ceiling tile project. You can even feel the difference just in weight. This round chalk, which might be like a Crayola kind of brand chalk, I'm not sure, feels very, very light. And this Koss brand chalk, and I know it's Koss because they have that rectangular shape, is very heavy. And that's the weight of all the pigment used. Their colors are very rich, very vibrant. You can even see that this one has little, well, maybe we're going to focus, has little holes in it. It's just, there's not much here with these other brands of chalk, but the Koss chalk is very nice, and I would recommend that. Let's talk scissors. Scissors are an investment. Make sure you invest in good ones. Fiskcars are probably the best scissors there are out there. My kids really like the longer pair of scissors, especially my older students seem to be able to manipulate the bigger pairs of scissors better. But they are a little pricey, but it's worth it to have a good pair of scissors that you'll be able to use for years in your art. Another investment, worth it, kind of expensive. Mine have been very well loved. We've used these for years and years. About time to order some more Royal Langnickel paintbrushes. These are the best if you're doing small detailed painting. We use these all the time in my room. Royal Langnickel is the brand to order your brushes from. Don't have sticker shock. I mean, they are not cheap, but after having years of paintbrushes that are losing their hairs constantly or just not very high quality, Royal Langnickel are the ones. For bigger brushes, I do kind of like these old crazy junky bristle brushes. I say junky, they've really held up. These guys don't lose their hair. I've had them for so long, I no longer know where I ordered them from. And these are Royal Langnickel, the bigger brushes, which we use these all the time as well. But I like these because they have a scratchy kind of bristle, which creates a great texture when you're painting. These are great for applying the paint when you want a nice smooth finish. So I hate glue bottles. I think that they were created by the devil to be stabbed by small children. So I don't use glue bottles in my room. I have little tiny reusable cups and junky paintbrushes. And the kids apply the glue from the cup with the little tiny brush. But I always make sure we use good old-fashioned Elmer's and get the good stuff. I don't like that washable business. It's made washable because they add water to it. So this is the good stuff, and this is what I recommend. And we usually go through one of these in a school year. Okay, I'm sure I forgot something, but that at least would be enough to get you started and get a good solid art supply order in for the start of the school year. Now, when it comes to things like clay, I usually wait to order my clay until after Christmas. That's when we usually do our clay projects. The reason I wait is because clay can tend to dry out. I don't usually order clay from one of the big art supply catalogs. I order it from a local supplier. That way I know I'm helping a local business and my clay is going to be nice and soft. If it's coming from a warehouse where it might have been sitting in a heated or hot environment, it might be coming to you rock hard. I also wait to order my glazes at that point too, just to see how much money I have left in my budget, because glazes can add up. But Stroke and Coat by Mako is who I order for glaze. As far as other projects like weaving or printmaking, weaving, you've got to invest in a good brayer. I think Speedball makes the best, and I also like their washable inks, and the foam blocks are perfect for printmaking. As far as weaving goes, that one's tricky because I can't seem to find a good yarn supplier in any of those major catalogs. So I usually go to Joann's and buy Red Heart yarn because you can get one of those 1 pounder of yarns, and it little goes a long way with that. And I also order the cardboard looms through the art supply catalogs along with needles every year. both plastic, the really long 6-inch ones, and metal needles. Like I said, pretty sure I'm forgetting a half dozen things, but if you ask, I'll be sure to answer and share all the little bit of wisdom that happens between these years. So thanks, guys. I hope it's been at least a little bit helpful, and happy shopping.